And yet, in the other poll, on issues, Trump still winning. So this is your big opportunity, Democrats. He's down in the numbers, and you still can't score. When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. Now, some of this is just because people are fucking stupid. 2 points on respect for democracy. Democrats win on health care, environment, women's rights, respect for democracy. But on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Boy. So we got to talk about a pretty brutal reality check that happened on The View as Alyssa Griffin basically admitted the quiet part out loud about the current state of the Democrat Party, which is that they're in complete and total shambles. And if an election was held today, it is likely that Trump would probably win. Now, she's saying this because there are a lot of people in the media who are reacting to a bombshell poll that was covered by CNN showing that Trump is still winning on basically every major issue that people actually vote on, like crime, the economy, immigration, you know, the things that people actually really care about. Okay. Yeah, Trump is still winning.
What do you think?
Yeah, what are we seeing? You know, Donald Trump being underwater, Democrats saying, oh, this guarantees us we're going to fly high in the midterms. Let me tell you, this guarantees you nothing, because at this particular point, the Democrats are the New Orleans Saints of political parties. What are we talking about? Trust the Dems or GOP more on the economy? Who leads on the economy? Republicans by 7. Immigration, Republicans by 13. How about crime, a big issue for Donald Trump and the Republicans? Look at that, lead by 22 points. So the bottom line is this. At this particular point, the ball may be on the ground, but the Democrats have not picked up the ball and running with it. If anything, at this particular point, it's the Republicans who are running with the ball on the top issues, the economy, immigration, and crime.
Give some context on this. Compare this when Republicans last took the House.
Yeah, let's compare it back to 2022. I think this kind of gives away the game right here. Okay, the GOP is more trusted than the Dems on the economy. It was 12 points in 2022. Slight decline in that lead, but still 7 points. How about immigration? It was Republicans by 3 back in 2022. Look at this. The Republican lead's actually gone up by 10 points. What are you doing, Democrats? My goodness gracious. And on crime, the Republicans were up by 13, and now they're up by 22. The lead, again, expanding by nearly double digits. So whatever Democrats are doing, it ain't working, Kate. It ain't working. Republicans have the lead on all 3 issues.
What's the reason that you are finding so far that's driving this?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's all about the center of the electorate, right? You win with independents, you win overall. And what do we see right here among independents? Republicans still have a point lead on the economy. They got a 10-point lead on immigration. They got a 21-point lead on crime. The bottom line is, when you look at these numbers, Democrats should call their offices, because at this particular point, even if Republicans, or even if the public doesn't like what Donald Trump is doing, they ain't necessarily liking what Democrats are doing. And it ain't just a referendum on one party. You actually have to go out and beat that party. At this particular point, Democrats are not able to beat Republicans. They still
and again, this isn't as Donald Trump came into office. These are numbers from this month.
These are numbers from September of 2025, we still find that the Republicans leading on all 3 of these issues. And, of course, this economy will be the key. If Democrats are going to win, they're going to have to likely win on the economy. At this particular point among independents, you see that 1-point lead for Republicans. And overall, at least according to the Washington Post, they hold a 7-point lead on the economy overall as well.
Yeah, see, now you heard that. Okay, that really is a devastating poll for Democrats because, again, despite all of the propaganda, despite all the boohoo, whine, and grind, constantly from Democrats, calling Trump Hitler, exaggerating about everything that Trump does, right? They're trying to make it seem worse than it really is. The Republicans and President Trump, they're still winning, right? The voters still trust Republicans more on key issues than they trust the Democrats, which really shows you how bad Democrats governed the last 4 years, right? So, again, Alyssa Griffin is going to cite this on The View. And let's just say that the cackling hens did not like this reality check.
So if you're worried about where the country is heading, you're not alone. 79% of American voters that think that the U.S. is in a state of political crisis, and more than half think democracy isn't working. It's funny, under Obama and Biden, it was working. All of a sudden, it's not working. Gee, what happened?
I don't know that that's what the poll says.
I know, but I'm saying it. I'm saying that.
I disagree with what Gavin said, that he doesn't think we're going to have elections in 2028. And I think I have a different thought on this poll. But listen, democracies are fragile. We all have to be invested in them. But I think they bend. I don't think it's going to break. I still think this is the best form of government in the history of mankind.
It certainly
and I'm
is.
proud to live in a democratic republic. But what I will say is I think this is more a reaction to people feeling like the system doesn't work for them. Millennials were the first generation that was likely to not do better than their parents were. The fact that people are working harder than ever and not being able to get ahead, and they feel like the American dream is unattainable. They just feel like the system that Washington is giving us doesn't work. I don't tie this to...
You're talking about an economic...
But
we're not talking
think,
about democracy. It's completely different.
I think that people throw around the term democracy. I think Democrats totally overcalculated this last election. At the end of the day, if it's a Tuesday morning, you're deciding what bill you can afford to pay, you're not voting on democracy. You're voting on the cost of living.
Facts. I mean, hey, again, I don't agree with Alyssa Farah Griffin much because she's basically a liberal. Okay, I mean, she is a liberal at this point. But, you know, she's spot on. Democrats can run around here talking about democracy is under attack, but nobody really believes that. Nobody believes the rhetoric from Democrats that they are democratic, right? There's nothing democratic about the Democrat Party. When you rig your own primaries in blatant ways, right, for the world to see, like, for example, when they basically rigged it in favor of Joe Biden, they went out of their way to sue on behalf of Joe Biden to keep anybody from challenging him in the primaries. They went out of their way to then get rid of Joe Biden after he, quote unquote, won the rigged primary and then replaced him with Kamala Harris. And they had no primary whatsoever. You can't come out here and lecture people about the importance of democracy when clearly Democrats don't believe in democracy, right? Like it's empty, right? It's just something that they toss around. But regardless, that doesn't pay the bills. That doesn't put food on the table. That doesn't protect people's lives, right? It doesn't make businesses and the economy grow. Like it doesn't do any of those things, okay? And Democrats, their constant focus on quote unquote democracy is just a losing issue, right? It's a losing strategy. Even if voters trust them more on democracy, it doesn't mean a damn thing, right? It doesn't mean anything at all.
It's a nebulous term. It just doesn't mean enough to people. I think people are frustrated with the cost of living and they're frustrated with the environment.
I think it didn't mean enough to people because they had forgotten how bad Trump was. I think it meant a lot to people in 2020 when Joe Biden was first running because we were just, surviving that first Trump term. I think if somebody was running now against Trump when people have been painfully reminded of what an authoritarian he is, it would be very different. But I also think that the reason people don't feel democracy is working is because our system is supposed to work through a system of checks and balances. And today, unfortunately, there are no checks and balances. The Congress is a fickle organization of rubber stamping Republicans that do zero oversight over the abuses of the Trump administration. And the courts have no enforcement mechanism, so they can issue judicial orders, but they don't have the teeth to be able to enforce them.
The courts have intervened against Trump numerous times. I think the courts have largely held. Our founders intended for them to work slowly.
The court said not to deport Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and they did.
And he is back now, and that was the system working. But
months and months afterwards.
I'm going to say something that's going to make
frustrated.
This table and this audience very upset, but I want to tell the unvarnished truth. I think if the election were reheld today, Donald Trump would win by the same, if not a bigger margin. I think we forget this country.
How do you say that, though?
This country is so deeply polarized.
Wow.
If you hated him before, you hate him even more now. There are definitely people who are like, ooh, I'm having some buyer's remorse. But there's this poll today that shows that on the top issues people voted on, they still trust Republicans more. We are literally a 48-48 country, and then this little percentage in the middle that goes either way.
I would be curious who this poll, the age of the poll, because I think this probably gears younger in who is saying that, because anyone who has read their history books since the beginning of time Democracy may be fragile. It is the only way. You do not want a theocracy. You do not want a monarchy. You do not want socialism or communism. They have never worked. In intention and spirit, they sound great, but go back to the books, because that will not end well.
Don't you think that democratic socialism works in the Scandinavian countries?
But think of that. Sweden's the size of New
right?
Jersey. We are a giant, massive, diverse, socioeconomically, racially. We're a very different country.
It's hard to compare the two, honestly, Joy.
Just, where did I say that? Oh.
I know Joy Behar feel like a dumbass, right? They're just knocking down her far left talking points. Well, don't you think that democratic socialism works in the Scandinavian country? Yeah, they don't have a military, right? They don't have a real military budget. Yeah, of course it works when they don't really pay for a military. And also on top of that, they have a homogeneous society, right? They're all rich. Yeah, their societies are different. Their population is smaller. Like, yeah, it's just a completely different country. It's a completely different society. So yeah, that can work when you don't really have to defend yourself, when you essentially are going to depend on the United States to defend your country if shit really hit the fan with Russia. Yeah, of course you can afford all the socialism, right? I mean, that's essentially the only reason that Europe can afford their socialism, is because the United States is their de facto military if shit hits the fan with Russia. So again, if you take that away, let's see how easy it is to afford it. But again, what you have here is a rare moment of some reality here on The View, which is that when it comes to the major issues, Democrats are losing. And when it comes to the issues that they focus on the most, that they want to talk about, like mod democracy, they might be quote unquote winning, right? But nobody gives a damn, right? Nobody gives a damn about that. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. So as I've been saying, and I think this continues to hold true, as long as Democrats are the party of F Trump and nothing else, right? And again, leaning into socialism, they're going to struggle, right? Because far left socialism is not popular in this country, okay? And being Trump deranged no matter what is also not popular. This is why the Democrats aren't popular. Now, again, how that translates to the midterms, I don't know, to be honest with you, okay? We're going to have some elections coming up here soon, particularly in states like New Jersey and Virginia. You guys need to make sure that if you live in those states that you are voting, okay, that you're getting out there and you're voting, because we do have elections. And Republicans tend to fall asleep in off-year elections, again, like this year, and we can't fall asleep at the wheel, right? So we're going to see what happens. But I personally think that as long as the economy gets better, I think that Trump is going to be in good shape. I think on all the other issues, I think Trump is doing pretty well, to be honest with you. But when it comes to the economy, that's going to take more time, because we're still living in the residuals of the Biden economy. We haven't really seen what the Trump economy actually is going to look like, because we haven't had enough time to see the effects or to feel the effects of Trump's policies, okay? It takes at least a year or two to actually really feel the effects of the policy of the new administration when it comes to the economy. It could take longer, but I just think that as long as we're not in a terrible situation going into the midterms, when it comes to the economy, I think we're going to be fine, right? And hopefully, when it comes to the big, beautiful bill, all of the provisions, the tax provisions, we're going to start to see the benefits come to fruition here sooner than later, hopefully, but it can take some time. However, we are starting to see businesses take advantage of these tax provisions that I've been telling you guys about, that, in my opinion, surely are going to drive growth. I mean, if you look at the second quarter GDP report, you actually had it revised up to 3.8%, which is really good.
All right. On happier times, call it the Trump effect. That's the subject of the riff. That's right, the Trump effect on the economy. Now, true enough, the ink is barely dry on the one big, beautiful bill. And the impact of that in its entirety is really going to boost factory building and the blue-collar boom next year. But some of the business tax cuts are retroactive to January 1st of this year. So American business already hard at work buying new equipment and machinery and various information software and so forth. Right now, they're paying for it with their 100% immediate cost write-off. That was in the bill. You can see this in the revised GDP report for the second quarter, which ended in June and came out this morning. Real GDP jumped, wait for this, 3.8%. That is a big number. It was the first real quarter responding to Donald Trump's optimistic and bullish psychology that America is back, the hottest country in the world. And speaking of optimistic and bullish psychology, get this, since early April, the S&P 500 stock index is up 32%, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ is up 46%. Investment money is pouring in all over the world. And domestic business is starting to take new risks to expand their operations. My hunch is a lot of entrepreneurs are out there starting new businesses, and in fact, new business formations since January are projected to rise 16%. That, according to the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank. Now, as part of the Trumpian philosophy, get out there and build, especially factories. When you build new factories, you're talking construction, pipes, power, trucks, cars, jobs, wages, diners, restaurants, bodegas, office buildings, homes, and so on.
Yeah, and like I told you guys, that all takes time, right? So again, in my opinion, I think that the issue that Trump really needs to focus on the most is the economy, and they've already passed legislation to do that, and we're already seeing investments being made. It just takes time, right? It takes time in order to really see the benefits. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if the economy is running red hot going into the midterms. And if that's the case, bye-bye, right? Bye-bye to the Democrats. It is over, right? It is over for Democrats. So again, we're going to see. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.